Why do I have to manually name my family types if the family type itself contains all the information I want to put in the name? This is the thought that led me to a 3-year long rabbit hole of making B Manager's dream app that is missing piece of automation in Revit. The only thing that is still manual labor that is more tedious and boring than writing comments and syncing to the central model, more tedious than dimensioning hotel bathrooms. The app that brings order to never ending chaos of element names. The app that does one thing and one thing only, but exceptionally well. It renames. And the Rename Pro is that dream finally realized. So in this video I will tell you all about this third iteration of my name automation add-in. So how did I get here? What if the wall name would consist of all the construction layer name characters and all the layer width? In that way I could find and pick the right wall from the list of similar wall types. I could easily glance at all my wall types and pick the one with the right construction. The only problem is that when I create the wall type, edit the structure, I have to remember all that information so I could add that to my new name. And this is boring and repetitive tasks. So I set out to make a simple add-in that would collect layer data from the compound structure of the element, be it wall, floor, or compound ceiling. But what about doors and windows? They all have width and height information that we always write in the name. Why would we ever have to do it manually? And yet we do it all the time. And what about text notes? Have you ever seen a list of text notes in Revit model that has been developed for over a year? It's crazy. For that one simple thing, font, size, and color, people managed to create and replicate 10 text note types with same parameters instead of using 5. And why? Because the name did not contain the suffix bold, when in reality the font is bold, and the next user just created a new type just to add bold suffix to the name. Same goes with dimension names that do not represent the real size of the dimension. So I set out to make the next addition to my add-in that would manage these names of these elements. But the add-in was crude with hard-coded parameters, but yet it did its job. And so, after the success of first two add-ins, I knew that there are much more possibilities to be explored ahead. First two add-ins had basic functionality with limitations that I wanted to resolve. There are many more parameters that could be included in the next iteration of the add-in, and there had to be ways to use shared parameters. So I set out to make the next iteration of the add-in with the goal of it to be more parametric, so I could manage all the Revit categories and elements. Also, a big motivator for making this add-in was Revit's own PDF functionality, which already implements parametric name workflow. This was also a proof that this is possible and viable option for renaming elements. Also, the user interface and workflow for PDF naming made sense to me, and I saw a lot of potential in this kind of workflow. And here we are, more than a year later, with early access soon to be launched. And if I have to describe the past year in a sentence, this most famous quote from Kennedy would fit the best. We do things not because they are easy, but because we thought they were going to be easy. So about the user interface. As with previous add-ins, the user interface and the common icon should blend with Revit's native user interface as much as possible. One thing that I always loved about Apple devices and missed in Microsoft Windows is how consistent all the apps user interfaces are in macOS or iOS, between app to app compared to the Windows and Android. So in my opinion, all the flashy icons and designs that do not blend with Revit's own UI just makes it look more like circus. Revit has UI design guidelines, which they themselves unfortunately do not follow, as I've discussed in previous video, but they don't force these guidelines, and the result is that every add-in has their own styling, making the overall look of the software more busy to the user and more looking like mashed potato salad. So with all this in mind, I have tried my best to utilize existing Revit's UI guidelines, and how it all worked out, you be the judge. As I mentioned, the main user interface and workflow is similar to that of PDF export setup, with many additions, but the core concept of adding parameters from parameter list to compose the name is similar. So here we have categories list with two tabs. You can choose which categories you want to select for renaming. These categories are also displayed parametrically, meaning that only categories for elements that are in the model are displayed. You can also check these checkboxes to filter categories that are selected or and edited. Next we have properties panel. This is also parametrically generated for each category, consisting of aggregated built-in or shared parameters that the elements or category has. For example, if the family has shared parameters that are not added to the file, they will show in the list, but the family type with the shared parameters will only get the value in the name. Shared parameters are marked with this symbol. Now, we also have a special parameter called structure for families that have structure like walls, floors, and others. This is marked with 3 lines representing layers. For these categories, we also have structure properties marked with this empty dot, so we can add these properties to the name rules by double-clicking or by this arrow. So this is the table where the magic happens. You add parameters here, then you can order them, add prefixes, suffixes to them, add separators, pick how many characters of the value will be displayed, and what will be the yes or no value. You can even specify default value for when the parameter has default by category value. Then we have this special parameter called structure. This parameter is the same that is in the family type for wall, floor, or any other family which consists of multiple construction layers. And what is super awesome is that we can edit naming rules for this compound structure. We can go in and say that we want to display, let's say, all layer material names, but just first 3 characters, and then width of the layer. We can also set character that will identify layers and structural layers, so we can see in the name what layers are in the core structure.
Nice.
And then we have a list for existing and new names, and if there are some errors for new names or if there are some duplicates. Click refresh button to refresh new name list. See how long it took to generate the new names. And if you double click on the row, this switches your category to name category. So you can easily edit the new name rules for this exact category. You can also decide to show only valid names or only new names. Last but not least, I wanted to incorporate some sort of settings saving mechanism. Because Revit versions change, computers change, and I wanted to be able to save these settings for easy transportation between home computer and office computer, between Revit versions and between coworkers. And so the JSON data format was incorporated as the main aspect for data management for this add-in. And this opens up a bunch of possibilities. You can save and manage multiple different Rename Pro settings. For example, one for architecture department, one for map, one for construction department, and one for your home and one for your office. Also, this allows for easy data manipulation outside of the Revit environment. For example, you can input your RGB colors in your preferred language, and the Rename Pro will output the RGB value to human readable text. This also allows for easy settings deployment across the office. Just push the settings JSON into every PC and you're set. Every coworker will have the same naming scheme. Here we have the name for the settings file, and if we click on the link you can open the directory. And with export and load buttons, you can easily switch between multiple settings. Crucially, Rename Pro is designed to be supplement rather than replace manual processes. It introduces no dependencies, nor does it mandate its use by complicating the model with unnecessary shared parameters. This philosophy ensures that Rename Pro can be seamlessly integrated into any architectural practice, enhancing productivity without disrupting established workflows. These are the things that I try to avoid in my personal workflow when working with other add-ins daily as an architect. As for the future development of this app, these are a few features that I would like to include as soon as possible. For example, the ability to add fixed prefixes and suffixes to new names. They would be fixed by special identification characters so that you could add prefixes or suffixes to new names that will not change even if the new name is updated. Also, the ability to switch between different measurement units for each category is planned in the near future. I want to add a checkbox column for the new name list, so you can pick which names to rename and which to leave as is. So if you have any feedback or ideas after testing this add-in, please send me an email or add a comment to this video. I hope you will find this add-in useful and put it through its paces. Thank you for watching, and if you made this far, here's a video of my cat. Have a great day and see you in the next video.